The memorial beacon had been broadcasting the same message for 300 years. Here lies humanity lost to the void, but not forgotten. What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity had been listening the entire time. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the UES Phantom, watching the Galactic Memorial Station drift past their cloaked vessel. The irony wasn't lost on him. Monument to human extinction, built by the very species that had tried to wipe them out, now serving as humanity's greatest intelligence asset. "Signal intercept complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Beth Cole from the communications console. Her fingers danced over controls that would have seemed impossible to the galaxy's other species. Human technology had evolved in ways they couldn't imagine. "The Hegemony Council is planning another expansion into the Perseus Arm." Jake's jaw tightened. The Hegemony had declared humanity extinct after the fall of Earth, but they'd been wrong. Humanity hadn't died. It had learned to hide, to adapt, to become something the galaxy had never seen before. They'd become ghosts in their own universe. "Any mention of the colonies?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. The Hegemony had been systematically hunting down human settlements for centuries, believing they were cleansing the galaxy of a plague species. What they didn't realize was that every attack only made humanity stronger, more united, more determined. "Nothing new," Beth replied. "They still think we're scattered refugees clinging to dead worlds. If only they knew." The human fleet consisted of over 1,000 vessels, each one invisible to conventional sensors, each one carrying refugees who had become something more than the galaxy remembered. They weren't the same species that had first reached for the stars centuries ago. They were harder now, tempered by survival, unified by purpose. Dr. Emma Cross emerged from the laboratory section, her face grave. "The genetic analysis is complete. The Hegemony's biological weapons are getting more sophisticated. They're not just trying to kill us anymore. They're trying to make sure we can never reproduce." The weight of her words settled over the bridge like a shroud. This wasn't just genocide anymore. This was an attempt to erase humanity from the cosmic equation entirely. Jake turned to face his crew, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes that had carried their species through 3 centuries of hiding. They were the children of survivors, raised on stories of a lost homeworld and taught that their very existence was an act of defiance. "They think we're extinct," Jake said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's hidden rage. "They think they know what we were, but they have no idea what we've become." Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbiddens, connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Lieutenant Tom Hayes looked up from his tactical station, where he'd been monitoring Hegemony fleet movements. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the Centauri system. It's not matching any known Hegemony technology." Jake's blood ran cold. Centauri was where they'd hidden the Ark ship's massive vessels containing the genetic legacy of Earth and nearly 50,000 human survivors. If the Hegemony had found them— "All stop," Jake ordered. "Initiate full stealth protocols. Emma, I need you to analyze those energy signatures. Tom, get me a tactical assessment of Hegemony forces in that sector." As his crew sprang into action, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's long period of hiding was about to end. For 3 centuries, they'd lived in the shadows, becoming legends, becoming myths. But legends had a way of becoming real when the galaxy least expected it. The memorial beacon continued its somber broadcast, unaware that the ghosts it mourned were preparing to remind the galaxy why humanity had once been feared. The Hegemony thought they'd won, thought they'd eliminated the threat humanity posed to their ordered universe. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Hegemony surveillance post on Kepler Station had been monitoring the Centauri system for 2 weeks, and Commander Vex couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with their readings. His four-armed frame hunched over the sensor array, manipulating controls with the practiced efficiency of a career intelligence officer. "Sir, the energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases," reported sensor technician Kira, her scaled hide rippling with nervous patterns. "It's almost as if space itself is danding." Vex's mandibles clicked in irritation. The hegemony had spent centuries cataloging every known form of technology in the galaxy. Their database contained the energy signatures of 1,000 species, from the plasma drives of the Altarian Empire to the quantum cores of the Ethereal Collective. But this was something new. Could it be a natural phenomenon? He asked, though. He already knew the answer. The patterns were too regular, too purposeful. Someone was out there, using technology that shouldn't exist. "Negative, sir. The readings suggest artificial manipulation of spacetime on a massive scale. Whatever's generating this is bigger than a dreadnought and more advanced than anything we've encountered." A chill ran down Vex's spine. The last time the hegemony had encountered unknown technology, it had belonged to the humans. And the humans were supposed to be extinct. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Centauri system, the human fleet was conducting the largest military operation in their post-Earth history. The Ark ships had been discovered, just as Jake had feared, but not by the hegemony. They'd been found by something far worse, a hegemony extermination fleet equipped with planet-killer weapons. Admiral Lisa Stone stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resurrection, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet. At 62, she was one of the oldest humans alive, old enough to remember the stories of Earth from those who had actually seen it. Her silver hair was pulled back in a military bun, and her eyes held the kind of steel that came from watching your species nearly die. "Fleet status report," she commanded. 837 vessels in formation, reported Captain Rodriguez from the tactical station. "All ships report ready for Operation Lazarus." Lisa nodded grimly. Operation Lazarus, the plan. To reveal humanity's survival to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. They'd spent centuries preparing for this moment, developing technology that would make the hegemony's best ships look like children's toys. "Begin Phase 1, Lisa ordered. "Activate the shadow drive on all vessels." Across the human fleet, impossible. Things began to happen. Ships that had been invisible to sensors suddenly became visible, but not in the way anyone expected. They cast shadows, literal shadows, across the fabric of space itself. The shadow drive, humanity's greatest technological achievement, bent spacetime in ways that made their vessels appear as dark silhouettes against the cosmic background radiation. From the bridge of the Resurrection, Lisa watched as her fleet emerged from 3 centuries of hiding. Each ship was a testament to human ingenuity and determination. They'd taken the best technology from a dozen species and improved upon it, creating weapons and defenses that the galaxy had never imagined. "Hegemony Fleet bearing Mark 773, announced the sensor officer. 12 dreadnoughts, 48 cruisers, and support vessels. They're moving to intercept the Ark ships." "Let them come," Lisa said quietly. "It's time the galaxy remembered what humans are capable of." The Hegemony Extermination Fleet, commanded by Admiral Theron, was confident in their approach. They'd eliminated human settlements before scattered groups of survivors clinging to life on dead worlds. This would be no different. "Target the largest vessels first," Theron ordered from his command chair. "Standard extermination protocols. We'll be done before the memorial service." But as his fleet closed the distance, something unprecedented happened. The space around the human vessels began to darken, as if light itself was being absorbed. Energy readings spiked beyond the hegemony's instrument's ability to measure. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking, "we're detecting multiple contacts. They're there everywhere." On the display, shadow after shadow appeared, surrounding the hegemony fleet. Ships that defied conventional physics, wielding weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. The shadows were moving with purpose, with coordination that spoke of decades of preparation. Admiral Theron's confidence evaporated as he realized the truth. The humans weren't scattered refugees. They were an army that had been waiting for this moment for 300 years. The galaxy's greatest predators had just discovered they were the prey. The first shot of humanity's return to galactic prominence came not from weapons designed to destroy, but from weapons designed to humiliate. The human fleet had learned something crucial during their centuries of hiding, sometimes the greatest. Victory was letting your enemy destroy themselves. Admiral Theron's flagship, the hegemony dreadnought Inevitable, was the pride of the extermination fleet. Its quantum cannons could crack planets. Its shields could deflect the combined firepower of a dozen lesser vessels. But as the human shadows surrounded his fleet, Theron discovered that all of that power meant nothing when you couldn't target what you couldn't understand. "Fire on the largest shadow signature," he ordered, his voice betraying none of the uncertainty that gnawed at him, the Inevitable's main. Guns erupted in a display of destructive force that lit up the Centauri system. Quantum fire that could vaporize asteroids struck the shadow of the UE's resurrection and passed right through it. "No effect, sir," reported the tactical officer, his voice rising in pitch. "Our weapons are passing through the targets without impact." From the bridge of the resurrection, Admiral Lisa Stone watched the hegemony's confusion with grim satisfaction. The shadow drive didn't just hide their ships. It shifted them slightly out of phase with normal space. They could see and be seen, but conventional weapons couldn't touch them. "All ships, maintain shadow formation," Lisa commanded. "Let them waste their ammunition." The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. The hegemony fleet, faced with enemies they couldn't hurt, began to panic. Ships broke formation as captains made desperate attempts to escape what they perceived as an impossible situation. But humanity had learned patience during their long exile, and Lisa Stone had learned to think like a hunter. "Phase 2, she announced. "Target their engines. Non-lethal takedown." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come, assuming there was a galaxy left to study it. The human fleet emerged from shadow space with surgical precision, their weapon systems unlike anything the hegemony had ever encountered. Instead of the brute force approach favored by most galactic civilizations, humanity had developed weapons that targeted specific systems. Electromagnetic pulse cannons that could disable ship computers without harming the crew. Gravity manipulators that could lock vessels in place without destroying them. Nanite swarms that could disassemble weapon systems while leaving life support intact. Within minutes, the entire hegemony extermination fleet was dead in space, their weapons offline, their engines silent, their crews alive but helpless. Captain Jake Morrison, monitoring the battle from his position near the memorial station, couldn't help but smile. "Open a channel to the hegemony fleet," he ordered. The face that appeared on Admiral Theron's screen was human, unmistakably and defiantly. Human. After 3 centuries of believing the species extinct, the hegemony was face to face with their greatest nightmare. "I am Admiral Lisa Stone of the United Earth Fleet," she announced, her voice carrying across space with the authority of the resurrected dead. "You have been hunting my people for 300 years. You built monuments to our extinction. You celebrated our destruction." Theron found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Impossible. The humans are extinct. We made sure of it." Lisa's smile was cold as space itself. "You made sure of nothing. You killed our world, but you underestimated our will to survive. We've been watching you, learning from you, preparing for this moment. Every attack you made on our colonies, every innocent life you took, Every celebration of our supposed extinction. We remember all of it. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. 3 centuries of rage and grief were being channeled into something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that had been forged in the crucible of near extinction and emerged, stronger than ever. What do you want? Theron asked, his 4 arms trembling with a mixture of fear and humiliation. Justice, Lisa replied simply. But not the kind you're thinking. We're not like you, Admiral. We don't commit genocide. We don't exterminate entire species because we fear them. We're going to do something that will terrify you far more than death. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the disabled hegemony fleet. We're going to let you live. We're going to let you return to your worlds and tell them what you've seen here. We're going to let you explain to the Hegemony Council that humanity is not only alive, but that we've become something beyond your ability to destroy. The implications hit Theron like a physical blow. To return alive after such a complete defeat, to be the messenger of humanity's impossible return, it would be the end of his career, possibly his life. The galaxy thought we were extinct, Lisa continued, her voice now broadcast on all frequencies. They thought they knew what we were capable of. They were wrong. We are the children of a dead world, raised in the shadows between stars. We are the species that learned to thrive in the dark places where others fear to go. Her image appeared on screens across the Centauri system, on the memorial station, on monitoring posts throughout the sector. The dead were speaking, and the galaxy was listening. We are humanity, and we have returned. The news of humanity's return spread through the galaxy like a shockwave, racing from system to system faster than the speed of light itself. The quantum communication networks that connected the hegemony's vast empire carried a message that no one had expected to hear. The extinct were alive, and they were more dangerous than ever. On the capital world of Hegemon Prime, Supreme Chancellor Corax received the report while in his meditation chamber, a crystalline dome that overlooked the city-sized governmental complex. His species, the hierarchy, had ruled the galaxy for over a millennium through careful planning, overwhelming force, and the systematic elimination of threats. The humans had been their greatest challenge, and their supposed extinction had been the hegemony's greatest triumph. Now that triumph had turned to ash. Show me the recordings again, Corax commanded, his 6 eyes focusing on the holographic display that materialized before him. The footage from Admiral Theron's fleet showed impossible things. Ships that cast shadows in space, weapons that disabled rather than destroyed, and worst of all, the face of Admiral Lisa Stone delivering humanity's declaration of return. His aide, a nervous Catherian named Zill, manipulated the controls with trembling tentacles. Supreme Chancellor, our analysts have confirmed the authenticity of the recordings. The energy signatures match no known technology, and the tactical capabilities demonstrated exceed our current understanding of physics. Corax's mandibles clicked. In agitation, how many ships? Initial estimates suggest over 800 vessels, sir. But our long-range sensors are detecting anomalous readings throughout the outer systems. There could be many more. 800 ships. The hegemony maintained a fleet of over 10,000 vessels, but after witnessing what the human ships were capable of, numbers suddenly seemed less important than technology. If humanity could disable entire fleets without losing a single vessel, traditional naval doctrine became meaningless. Meanwhile, in the depths of space far from any inhabited system, the human leadership was holding their first open council meeting in 3 centuries. The UES Resurrection had been joined by dozens of other capital ships, each one representing a different branch of humanity's scattered civilization. Admiral Stone stood before the assembled captains and civilian leaders, her image transmitted to ships throughout the fleet. These were the descendants of Earth's survivors, the children of refugees who had been forced to become something more than human to survive in a hostile galaxy. "We've achieved our first objective," she announced. "The galaxy knows we exist, but now comes the harder part. We have to decide what kind of species we want to be." Captain Morrison, representing the Intelligence Division, was the first to speak. "The hegemony will mobilize against us. They can't afford to let us survive, not after what we've shown them. We're looking at a war that will make the first human hegemony." Conflict looked like a minor disagreement. Dr. Emma Cross, now serving as Chief Science Advisor to the fleet, nodded grimly. "Our technological advantages are significant, but they're not unlimited. The shadow drive requires enormous amounts of energy, and our non-lethal weapon systems are more complex than traditional armaments. We can't sustain a prolonged conflict using current tactics." Admiral Stone listened to the debate with the patience of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. The human leadership had grown sophisticated during their exile, developing decision-making processes that incorporated the best elements of democracy, military efficiency, and scientific method. "What about the other species?" asked Captain Maria Santos, commander of the civilian evacuation fleet. "The hegemony has enemies. Some of the member species joined them out of fear rather than loyalty. If we can demonstrate that the hegemony can be opposed, we could start a galactic civil war," Morrison finished. "The question is whether that serves our interests or makes our situation worse." Dr. Cross pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy's political structure. "The hegemony controls approximately 60% of inhabited systems directly, with another 20% under their influence. But there are independent systems, resistance movements, and entire species that have been subjugated against their will." Stone studied the display, seeing possibilities that hadn't existed when humanity was weak and scattered. "We're not the same species that lost Earth," she said quietly. "We've learned things about survival, about adaptation, about unity that the galaxy has never seen. Maybe it's time we shared those lessons." The implications were staggering. Humanity had spent 3 centuries becoming the perfect survivors, developing technology and tactics that could challenge the galaxy's greatest power. But more than that, they had become something that the authoritarian hegemony couldn't understand or counter, a truly united species. On Hegemon Prime, Supreme Chancellor Corax was reaching similar conclusions. "Summon the War Council," he ordered. "Full mobilization of all military assets. I want every available ship prepared for immediate deployment." "Sir," Zill ventured carefully, "perhaps we should consider diplomatic options. The humans demonstrated restraint by not destroying our fleet. Maybe they can be reasoned with." Corax's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. "You don't understand, Zill. This isn't about what the humans want. This is about what they represent. For 1,000 years, the hegemony has maintained order through the principle that resistance is futile. If we allow humanity to exist, to demonstrate that we can be opposed, every subjugated species in the galaxy will follow their example." He moved to the great window that looked out over the capital, seeing the vast city that represented the pinnacle of hegemony achievement. "The humans must be destroyed completely this time. Not just their ships, not just their colonies, but the very idea of them. We cannot allow the galaxy to believe that the hegemony can be successfully defied." But as he spoke those words, reports were already flooding in from across the galaxy. Strange energy signatures detected in remote systems. Monitoring stations going dark. Communication relays reporting impossible readings before falling silent. Humanity's shadow was spreading, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that the extinct had not just returned, they had evolved. The Battle of Nexus Point would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy's old order truly died. The hegemony had assembled the largest fleet in their history, over 3,000 vessels, representing the combined might of a dozen subjugated species, all converging on the strategically crucial Nexus system where humanity had chosen to make their stand. Supreme Chancellor Corax himself commanded the fleet from his flagship, The massive dreadnought final word. This wasn't just a military operation anymore. It was a crusade to preserve the hegemony's vision of galactic order. The ships stretched across space like a mechanical constellation, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire worlds. Long-range sensors detect human vessels ahead. Reported Fleet Admiral Dex, his scaled features reflecting the confidence that came from commanding overwhelming force. Estimated strength, 150 ships maximum. Korax allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Even with their advanced technology, the humans were vastly outnumbered. Begin standard approach. All ships maintain formation integrity. I want this to be a demonstration that the entire galaxy can witness. But as the hegemony fleet closed the distance, something unprecedented began to happen. The space around the human vessels didn't just darken, it began to ripple, as if reality itself was being rewritten. On the bridge of the UE's resurrection, Admiral Stone watched the approaching armada with calm determination. All ships, prepare for full revelation protocol. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really become. The human fleet had spent 3 centuries doing more than just hiding. They had been studying, learning, and evolving. The technology they developed went beyond simple weapons and shields. They had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Shadow drive to maximum resonance, announced Captain Rodriguez. All vessels report ready for phase transition. What happened next defied every law of physics that the galaxy thought it understood. The human ships didn't just cast shadows, they became shadows, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The fleet of 150 vessels suddenly became a fleet of thousands, each ship casting dozens of shadow echoes across space-time. The hegemony's sensors went haywire, detecting targets everywhere and nowhere. Their targeting systems, designed to track conventional vessels, couldn't lock onto enemies that existed in quantum superposition. Impossible, breathed Admiral Dex, watching his tactical displays dissolve into chaos. They're violating the fundamental laws of space-time. But humanity had learned something during their long exile that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Laws were made to be broken by those clever enough to find the loopholes. Admiral Stone's voice echoed across all frequencies, reaching every ship in the system and beyond. Citizens of the galaxy, you are witnessing the return of a species that was pronounced dead. But we did not die, we transcended. The human shadow fleet moved through the hegemony armada like ghosts, their weapon systems targeting not the ships themselves, but the bonds that held the fleet together. Communication arrays failed, coordination networks collapsed, and thousands of vessels found themselves isolated and alone in the vastness of space. We learned something in the darkness between stars, Stone continued, her words being broadcast across the galaxy by communication networks that the humans had infiltrated long ago. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the most numerous. It's about being the most adaptable. Captain Morrison, monitoring the battle from his intelligence vessel, watched as decades of planning came to fruition. Hidden throughout the galaxy, human agents emerged from deep cover, broadcasting the truth about the hegemony's crimes, revealing suppressed history, and showing subjugated species that resistance was possible. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. As the news spread, uprisings began on dozens of worlds. Species that had been ground under the hegemony's heel for centuries suddenly saw hope where there had been only despair. On the bridge of the final word, Supreme Chancellor Korax watched his carefully constructed empire begin to crumble. All ships, target the human vessels, concentrate fire. But the shadow echoes made targeting impossible. Every shot passed through phantom images while the real ships remained untouchable. The hegemony's greatest fleet was being made to look foolish by an enemy they couldn't even hit. Dr. Emma Cross, coordinating the technical aspects of the battle, marveled at what her species had achieved. The shadow drive was just the beginning. Humanity had developed technologies that bordered on the miraculous. They had learned to exist in the spaces between dimensions, to manipulate quantum probability, to bend reality itself to their will. Phase 3, Admiral Stone announced. Begin the demonstration. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. The human fleet began to separate the hegemony ships from each other, using gravitational manipulation to gently push vessels away from the main formation. Instead of destroying them, they were herding them, corralling them like sheep. "We could destroy you," Stone's voice continued, reaching every being in the system. "Our weapons could crack your worlds, our ships could darken your suns. But we won't. Do you know why?" She paused, letting the question hang in space like a challenge. "Because we remember what it was like to face extinction. We remember the terror, the desperation, the absolute certainty that we were going to die. We won't inflict that on others, even those who tried to inflict it on us." Supreme Chancellor Corax felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: genuine fear. Not fear of death, but fear of irrelevance. The humans weren't just demonstrating superior technology. They were demonstrating superior philosophy. "This is our offer to the galaxy," Stone announced. "The age of the hegemony is over. But the age of cooperation, of mutual growth, of species working together instead of conquering each other, that age can begin today." As if to emphasize her point, the human fleet began to release the hegemony. Vessels one by one, sending them away unharmed, but with their weapons permanently disabled. It was a gesture of mercy that would be remembered for millennia. The memorial beacon that had once announced humanity's extinction now broadcasted a different message. Here begins the second age of humanity, not as conquerors, but as guardians of the space between stars. The galaxy had thought humanity was extinct. Instead, they had discovered that humans had become something the universe had never seen before, a species that had learned to die and chosen to live anyway. In the darkness between stars, humanity's children raised their faces to the light and smiled. They were home,